The track Give It Away begins with a simple drum fill played between the kick and snare drum. The snare is playing the last 16th note of beat 3 and beat 4, and then the bass drum plays the second and third 16th note of beat 4. So combined together we get this. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a... Then we're into the main groove that's used throughout the track. It's based around an 8th note feel played on the hi-hat, 2 and 4 on the snare drum. And we've got this funky 16th note bass kick drum pattern underneath, where the bass drum is playing 1 and the A, or the full 16th note of beat 1. Then we've got the and, or the upbeat 8th note of beat 2. And finally, we've got the second and third 16th notes of beats 3 and 4 on the bass drum. So the E and the and. For example, if we were to play the E and the and of every beat against 8th notes on the hi-hat, they would sound like this. 3 E and a 4 E and a. So we just need the E and the and of beats 3 and 4 combined with our bass drum pattern that we had on beats 1 and 2. So altogether it would give us this groove. 3 E and a 4 E and a. It's really important that you've got evenly emphasized 8th notes on the hi-hat. If you've a tendency to emphasize the quarter note like this, it just won't have the right feel and the right driving sort of quality from the hi-hat. For example, let me play you the two different feels. I'll play the first feel with emphasizing the quarter note and then more evenly played 8th notes. Let's take a look at the fill that takes us into the first verse. It's based just around the snare drum part, but there is a bass drum underpinning the first 3 notes. Let's just take a look at the snare drum part in isolation. And the figure is this. 3 E and a 4 E and a. So you notice we've got a flam in there on the upbeat 8th note of beat 2. So once again, here it is played slowly. 3 E and a 4 E and a. Then, as I said, we've got the bass drum underpinning those first 3 notes. So if we combine the two, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3 E and a 4 E and a. Two, 3, 4. Most of the fills in the track are based within the groove itself, so there really isn't any real deviation from that groove with fills around the toms, for example, but the only differences are within the groove itself. So here's the first fill played between the kick and snare drum that takes us into the chorus. So you notice there's a flam there on beat 4. So I'm playing that like this. So here's that sort of groove fill in context with the regular groove. There's another similar variation that takes us into the final verse, this time without the flam on beat 4, and that one sounds like this. And here's that example in context with some time. The final groove variation appears on the outro of the tune and moves over the bar line actually into the next bar instead of resolving on the downbeat. So I'll play that for you slowly at first. The trickiest part of that example is moving from the flam on the end of beat 4 to getting the open hi-hat on the last 16th note there. So again, here's that first bar, play very slowly. 2, 3 E and a 4 E and a. A final example for Give It Away is the fill you hear right at the end of the tune, where Chad plays triplets down the toms, ending on the bass drum. So the fill actually starts on beat 3 of the bar. So the first part of that fill is made up with this figure. And then we've got 8th note triplets down the toms with the bass drum in there. And that concludes our look at all the parts for Give It Away.